Hi, and welcome back to Hill and Ponton's VA Disability Blog. I'm Natalia Jofre, the company COO.
And I'm attorney Rachel Cheek.
And like I mentioned in a previous blog or a couple of them, obviously we're doing this new format because social distancing is so important. And we want to continue to put this information out there because it is important for you and your claims. And one of the big changes that happened this year was the change in the way VA processes claims, right, Rachel? I mean, the different paths, and we hear about legacy and AMA and all that good stuff. So I guess what we'll go over today are common questions with the new VA system called AMA. So let me start at the very beginning. What does AMA stand for?
AMA stands for Appeals Modernization Act. And this is something that had been in the works for quite some time. The VA had been planning this. They did a pilot program starting in 2018.
Mhm.
Then the system officially transitioned in February 2019. And now we're at the point where essentially every decision that comes out now is made under AMA. For a time,
Okay.
there were decisions coming out that were made under the legacy system that could have some claims under AMA, some claims under legacy. It's just been a lot to untangle and a lot to learn. Even though this has been in place for the past year, we're still coming across new things all the time.
Okay. So under the new system, how do effective dates work?
So it depends. It's going to be just the best, it's my favorite lawyer answer. It depends. So,
I'll
uh,
be shocked, by the way, the day you tell me, Natalia, this is a cut and dry question answer. There's no exclusion. That'll be the day I know that'll be a first. So don't worry. We know there's always well, there the after explanation, but in general.
exactly, in general. So I'll just start by kind of doing a brief overview. Basically, the legacy system, or the system that claims used to be processed under, essentially you get a decision, and you file an appeal, and then you wait 3 years for the VA to get back to you.
Mhm.
Now, when you get a decision under AMA, you have different appeal options. There's not just one form that you use. You can file an appeal to what's called the higher level review lane. What that is essentially you're saying, hey, VA, I've got this rating decision. I don't agree with it. You have the information that it's in my claims file. I already submitted it. You have the information. You need to look at this again. And the VA will reevaluate with the evidence that's already been submitted. You can't submit new evidence. You can also appeal with something that's called a supplemental appeal, which is essentially saying, hey, you got this decision wrong, and here's the evidence that I now have. I didn't at the time of the decision, that you can, now make a decision
Right.
and make it right this time. So with the supplemental claim, this is where things get kind of fun, as fun as the VA can be. And by that, I mean a nightmare. So,
Right.
so you can, so you've got that supplemental appeal I just mentioned. You can file that to a decision that you've received within the last year and continue your appeal forward. The effective date should be the same as the claim that you initially filed that you got the decision on, provided that
Okay.
you appealed it within a year. That's
Mhm.
how the legacy system worked as well. As long as you appeal decisions within a year, you can preserve that effective date. With supplemental claims, you can also file. Now you have to file this. Sorry, I'm just laughing because the way that I am explaining this. This is my job. This is all I do, and it is difficult to explain. So imagine having to navigate this yourself as a vet. So
Yeah.
you can file a supplemental claim basically if you've received a decision in the last year, or if you've received a decision at any point in time. In 1985, you received a decision on PTSD, and it was the denial, say. Now, instead of being able to file just a new claim form, you have to file that supplemental claim form, and you have to submit evidence with it. When you file the appeal, you can't just say, "Hey, I'd like service connection for PTSD." You have to say, "Okay, well, I filed for service connection for PTSD in 1985. You denied it. Here's my supplemental claim form, and it must be submitted with evidence that wasn't in the record at the time." So
Mhm.
There, your effective date is not going to be 1985 when you filed your first claim. It's going to be the date of the time that you're filing a supplemental claim now. So
Uh,
it gets a little confusing.
Gets a lot of confusing, but it's so okay,
I,
gotcha.
there's a whole other level of appeals I haven't even gotten into. Natty.
Wow, 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 wow. So real cut and dry, real straightforward stuff.
hmm
Let's stick to let's stick to what's maybe a little easier then. Is submitting evidence any different with the new system? And can people submit evidence whenever they want, just like in the legacy system? Because I guess before you could pretty much submit evidence at any time.
hmm
So is the submission of evidence different, and can you submit at any time?
Okay, good. And I'm glad you said, with the legacy system, this is something that used to be able to do, file evidence at any time, because that's true. That is what a lot of veterans might be used to. That is not the case with the AMA system. So when you first submit a claim, you can file evidence, until they make a decision on it, as long as you're submitting a new claim. Now, if you're submitting a supplemental claim for a condition that's been denied before, you have to submit new evidence with it at the time that you file.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the VA is not even going to consider it. So that is also similar, even if you're doing appeals. So say you got a rating decision, you don't like what it says, and you submit like we talked about, a higher level review appeal. You
Yeah.
can't submit any evidence with that. That is asking the VA to look at what's already in the record. With a supplemental appeal, again, just like filing a new claim on the supplemental form, whenever you file a supplemental appeal, you have to file the decision or the new evidence with it. You
Mhm.
can't submit at any time. There's some time limit restrictions. The VA has been pretty loose on them. We don't have a specific, it's 45 days that you must submit new evidence. We don't have anything like that. They haven't come out with guidance like that. Our
Uh-huh.
general rule now is just don't file this claim or don't file this appeal until we have that evidence. We want to get that evidence so we can submit it in at the same time.
Okay. All right. Um, Someone posed this question: if I fill out an old form will the VA still look at it or consider it with the new system?
No. That's an
They
easy
will.
one. I definitely could tell you that answer.
Yay! Easy answer. Love it. The first, I'm sure it'll be the last.
Yes. Now, what they'll do, they don't always. They may send you a letter saying, "Hey, this is the wrong form. We need the
Yeah.
new one," and they should send you the updated form, but they don't always.
Right. Okay. Has the law changed with the new VA system, or is it just the process that's changed? So that's a really good question. So did the law change, or did the just the process change?
So the general principles of, say, service connection, secondary service connection, increased rating, those are all the same. It is the process. It's basically the appeals process and the claim process that has been changed. So I mean, it is the law, but the general principles that apply once you actually get your claim and appeal in, and the VA to look at it, are the same.
Okay. How does TDIU work with the AMA system? Is anything different there? And I guess
Just
tell people what TDIU is.
sure. So TDIU is basically, I'm going to say it's an abbreviation, but it might take longer to say than individual
Mhm.
unemployability, which is when the VA recognizes that although you're not 100%, your combined rating isn't 100%, your
Mhm.
conditions aren't rated at 100. You do have conditions that are service connected that prevent you from working, and therefore you're essentially 100% disabled because you're not able to work, you're not able to earn an income. You might as well be 100% disabled, and in that case, the VA will compensate you at the 100% rate, even though you aren't rated at 100%.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
and then the question was whether appeal. Process for IU is different. Not any different from what I've already discussed. So if you're appealing, you got to decide which appeal form you want to use.
Right.
You do still use the same form for individual unemployability, the VA 218940. That's got to go out with individual unemployability claims.
Okay. The $1 million question, right? Because when this was rolled out, it was done with the process, with the promise, pardon me, that this was going to be faster, right? People were going to get
Mm,
their benefits so much faster and they were going to get decisions so much faster. And so the $1 million question is, are decisions now faster with AMA? And I guess the second part of that would be, are they more accurate?
I'm glad you
So
added
let's
the
go
second part.
because I have a feeling they're intertwined, but yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So, yeah. So, as far as getting decisions faster, I would say yes. On average, I am seeing a quicker turnaround. Are they more accurate? Not any more than they were under the old system, and maybe even less, because I know that the VA is under a lot of pressure to get these cases moving. That was the big promise. We can get through so many vets cases. Just check out our turnaround. Look at how many decisions we made. Okay, that's all well and good, but if the decisions that are made are just kind of rubber stamp denials, they're not actually taking the time to look at these cases and really thoroughly evaluate them. That's not going to help much to get a denial faster.
Right, 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 right. And that's historically been the problem, right? Doesn't matter which system it's been under, if you're always getting denied and not really having a fair and thorough evaluation, doesn't matter which claim, which process your claim is being reviewed under.
Exactly.
Should veterans request a hearing with the board?
So I can't speak for all veterans, but I can say what we've been doing in our practice, which is that we are advising veterans to not request a hearing with the board.
Okay.
So let me actually back up and real quick. I want to go over the different options of the board. So these that I was the appeal options I was speaking about earlier, higher level review and a supplemental appeal. Those are at the regional office level. When you get a decision, maybe it's a second denial from the regional office, or if you still have an old case still working its way, getting through the system, you might be issued a statement of the case, which
Mhm,
is a document essentially. From that, you can appeal to the Board of Veterans Appeals, and so
mhm,
that's the level higher up than the regional office. Um, so, say you get a decision, you want to appeal it to the board. Similarly to at the regional office level, you can submit an appeal that asks for the VA to say, "Hey, it's direct review. Board, look at this evidence that we've submitted. It's all in there. We can't submit anything else. Just take a look and make the decision again." You also have a evidence lane submission, and that's similar to the supplemental claim in that you're saying, "Hey, got the decision. Don't love it. We're going to be submitting some new evidence showing why you should be granting what I'm asking for." And
mhm.
that does have a strict deadline. That's 90 days to submit evidence. So while the supplemental claim lane is still kind of up in the air, they haven't given us any guidance. The evidence submission lane at the board is a hard 90 days. The third option for a board appeal is you request a hearing. And
Mhm.
so with that, you're saying, okay, I don't agree. I want my day in court. I deserve to be heard. And with that, you cannot submit evidence before the hearing. But once after the hearing is scheduled, you can submit evidence at the hearing, and you can submit it 90 days after the hearing. So the reason that we don't advise that is because we got some timelines. This is from the VA themselves. This is the best light they can paint this in. They predict a timeline for these direct review cases at the board to have
Mhm.
a under 365-day turnaround. So if you submit direct review appeal, you don't have any other evidence to submit, the board's saying, okay, we think we can make a decision on that in under a year. Wh-
Okay.
When you do the evidence lane, submitting evidence within 90 days, the VA says, it's probably going to be over a year." For the board hearing lane, we don't have any guidance. They basically say, well, that's going to take a long time. They know that's going to be the longest time. We don't even have a prediction on turnarounds because, I mean, you think about it, if I was a veteran and I didn't wasn't was just going, at this case by myself, I think heck yes, I want a hearing. You guys haven't gotten it right since now. How
Right.
about, we talk about it and you we discuss and I actually get to, say my piece. So I
Yeah.
definitely understand the appeal. However, there is no telling of when a hearing could be scheduled. And it could be years. It could be like the old system. So we're not advising
Wow.
on that. We're advising either do a direct review if you've got all your evidence in, or an evidence submission lane. And of course, if you have a pending board appeal, you can always call us.
Because so I take it based on what you're saying, the risk there is once you pick a lane, you have to stay in that lane, right? So you can't say, wow, I've now been waiting for a hearing 2 years. Let me go ahead and pick the evidence review lane now. I
So
mean,
you
or can
can technically you can switch lanes within when the board says, hey, we've received your appeal, they'll send you a letter basically saying,
uh,
hey, you're on the docket. You can switch lanes within 60 days of receiving that, but
mhm,
that's not something we try. We don't really recommend that because it's just depending on the VA to get things right and make sure the appeals get put in the right place. We think, might as well just make the right try to make decide what the best appeal lane is for each case at the time.
mhm,
Now, yes, if you're at a point where you requested a board hearing and you haven't heard from anything in 2 years, it's too late at that point. It's past the time you got your letter. You're just going to have to keep waiting.
oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
but I
Okay.
would understand the
And
appeal.
all of that is time that you could have invested in one of the other two lanes and probably received a decision by now.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, it's almost like it's better it's better to kind of know what to expect than to have no idea what to expect
Mhm.
in terms of a time frame.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Would you say in general, do you think the AMA system is better for veterans?
Can you
In terms
tell?
of- yeah.
I I personally, I mean, your mileage may vary for each person, each advocate, each veteran going through it. Personally, I have, worked in both systems, and I find that the AMA system is a lot more convoluted and confusing. I think there's a lot of traps that veterans can fall into. I've seen claims denied, appeals that a veteran went to file denied because they didn't check a little X box on one of the forms, and then that's a new thing under the AMA system. It's just little tiny nitpicky things that weren't an issue in the legacy system that continue to pop up. I've just mentioned what, five separate appeal options that you can do once you get a decision. That's a lot to navigate through. I mean, that's a lot, I know, for our office to navigate. We look at every single case and try to figure out what the best option is. If you're doing that alone, I would prefer the legacy if it were me.
Okay, well, Rachel, thank you so much for all of your input and insight. And we thank everyone for joining us. We hope you stay happy and healthy. And on our end, we will continue to put out this information as much as we can. But if you have any questions, please feel free to visit our website or call our office. And otherwise, thank you for joining us, and we hope we see you again.
Thank you.